the promoter of New Zealand heavyweight contender Joseph Parker, a guy called Dean Lonergan, has claimed that Anthony Joshua is running scared of a potential showdown with his man. Now, Lonergan says he was in the UK recently and he reached out to Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Sport, and he says he was turned down flat when he proposed that potential fight. Eddie Hearn has since come out and retorted that claim and said, look, we are looking at 8 different opponents for Joshua's next fight. We can't fight all 8 of them on the same night. We can only pick one. So the idea that we're ducking one specific guy is a little silly, basically. I'm paraphrasing. He later goes on, Eddie Hearn, in the same article, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. He later goes on to say he doesn't actually believe that Joseph Parker wants the Joshua fight. And he says Joseph Parker should fight better opposition and all this type of stuff. Well, Joseph Parker, I think he should fight better opposition, but not because he needs to try and get a fight with Anthony Joshua. No, I think he should fight better opposition because I believe he's fallen into bad habits now, because his level of opposition is pretty poor and it hasn't been rising the way it should be to aid his progression. But I'll get onto that a little bit later on in this video. But as far as any type of immediate fight with Joshua, you know, Eddie Hearn's just actually making excuses. That's what it sounds like here, because Dylan White hadn't fought anyone better than the guys Joseph Parker had fought, and Dylan White was able to get the Anthony Joshua fight. He also says that Joseph Parker's not well known enough in the UK, as if he couldn't sell a Joseph Parker Joshua fight. He certainly could sell a Joseph Parker Joshua fight. Yes, Joseph Parker doesn't have the same amateur rivalry with Anthony Joshua that he had with Dylan White, but there are many ways to skin a cat. There are many ways to sell a fight, and I've got no doubt that a Joshua Parker fight would definitely sell. I mean, Joshua's so big in the UK right now, you could probably sell him a fight between him and anyone. So I don't buy that excuse from Eddie Hearn. But moving on to Joseph Parker, I watched his latest fight, which happened just the other day. He fought a short, bald-headed southpaw called Jason Bergman, who looked exactly like a fat version of John Malkovich. You know, the actor John Malkovich? Yeah, he looked like a fat version of him. A short, fat, bald-headed looking John Malkovich southpaw fighter. That's who Joseph Parker fought. I think it took him 8 rounds to get rid of the guy. Poor quality opponent, I would say. And Parker was making unnecessary mistakes in there. You know, one thing about Parker, as talented as he is, and he is very talented, there's a lot about Joseph Parker that impresses me. He's shown a great jab. He's shown very, very quick hands for a guy of his size. Joseph Parker's 6'4". He weighs, about 235, 240. And he's got tremendous, I think for all the big guys, the guys who are 6'4" and above, Joseph Parker's got the quickest hands and he's the best combination puncher. Very impressive when he lets them go. But one of the mistakes that Parker makes, and one of the things I don't like about his style, is that he's too upright. And he was caught with his chin in the air several times against Bergman. He's just way too upright. His chin is all the way up there, and several times when he was backing up, his chin actually went upwards. It came up as he was backing up. You don't want to do that. From a technical point of view, Anthony Joshua is not the finished article. He's not completely polished, but and Joshua himself can be a bit stiff and upright, but I don't see Joshua leaving his chin in the air as blatantly as Joseph Parker does. I think Joshua is a little bit more sound defensively, and you know, a lot of people are gonna raise an eyebrow at that, because they're going to think, hang on, Anthony Joshua wasn't that difficult to hit in a Dylan White fight, and I agree with that. But again, I've watched all Joshua fights, and I've watched most of Parker's fights, and I would say Joshua's defense is a little better than Parker's. Joshua gets his hands up to block shots. He gets his chin down most of the time. Whereas Parker fights with his hands low a lot. It pulls straight back from punches. His chin comes up in the air. I don't like that. If Joshua fought Joseph Parker right now, I would probably pick Joshua to win. I'm not saying Parker don't have a chance. I certainly wouldn't be shocked if Parker won, but I just don't like the way his chin's always in the air. And if you go and watch this fight, which is on YouTube, Joseph Parker versus Jason Bergman, you might agree with me. You know, too much chin in the air stuff, man. I'm not impressed, and with his defense anyway. And to me, as I said previously, this is a symptom of him not being stepped up in level of competition. You know, that's my opinion. He's fighting these journeymen and he's getting far too comfortable, and he's making mistakes against these guys, which he'll pay for as he moves up in competition. So another thing I've also been saying is I think that Joseph Parker, if it's feasible, if it's possible, needs to change promoters, because I'm sure he wants to fight better opposition, but this promoter seems incapable of getting him that. The last big boxing star from New Zealand was David Tua. Okay, most of you will know David Tua. Maybe some of you people who have got into boxing more recently won't know him. But David Tua was a very exciting, value for money heavyweight, big puncher, big left hook, kind of Joe Frazier-esque. I don't think it's too unfair to say that. And he had a decent career. He never won a world title, but he did challenge for the world title. But with him, he signed up with an American outfit, the Duvers at the time. It was Lou Duver and Dan Duver and Dino Duver and all those guys. Main events. He signed up with them fairly early on in his career and based himself in the United States. And most of Tua's fights throughout his career, for the bulk of his career, were in the United States. And because of that, they were able to get him very good quality sparring. I mean, for example, he sparred Evander Holyfield. He helped Holyfield get prepared for the first Mike Tyson fight. I'm not sure about the rematch, but certainly the first Tyson fight he helped Holyfield prepare for. And you don't get no better sparring than that. So Tua was in the United States in one of the golden eras of heavyweight boxing, the 90s. He was sparring loads of the best fighters. He was plenty active. He was getting good quality opposition. I mean, they matched him. You have to say they matched him too difficult or too tough against Ike Ibeabuchi. But he was also fighting other guys, David Izonrite, Oleg Maskayev. You know, these were tough fighters for David Tua on the way up. But that's only because he was based in the United States and he was fighting over there. Now, from what I understand and what I see on Joseph Parker's box rec, apparently he lives in Las Vegas, or he's based in America somewhere. I think it said Las Vegas. But he's fighting in New Zealand. You know, how does that work? How are you training or based in America and you're fighting in New Zealand? New Zealand and America are not close. That's a very long flight. You know, I think you should be based the place where you're fighting most often. If you're going to do all your training in New Zealand, or if you're going to do all your fighting in New Zealand, base your training there. But really and truly what he should be doing, as I've already said, is base his training in America and also fight in America. His promoter needs to sort that out. I don't know what his promoter's trying to do. He's trying to milk him in New Zealand and Samoa. I believe this Jason Bergman fight was in Samoa. But nah, man, that's not, what is happening right now in Parker's career ain't working for him. So if he can detach himself from that promoter or get that promoter to work with another promoter overseas, take him to the UK. I'm sure Eddie Hearn would, talk about having Parker on one of his shows, maybe building up a potential clash. Fight on one of Frank Warren's shows. I'm sure Frank Warren would be happy for a heavyweight to fight on one of his shows. Mick Hennessy, anybody. just get this guy out of New Zealand, get him fighting better quality competition, because, as I say, Joseph Parker does have tremendous potential, but I just feel like he's fallen into bad habits fighting so many poor quality opponents. And he's had how many fights now, Joseph Parker? 16, 17 fights? Really needs to be stepping it up now. Really does. Can't be fighting the likes of this Jason Bergman guy and these type of people for any longer. So, yeah, a little bit of a longer video than I wanted, but I had quite a few things to say about this. Whether or not Joshua was ducking him, whether or not his team really wanted the Joshua fight, I don't know whether Parker's team really have his best interests at heart. Should they really be challenging Joshua at this stage? Doesn't that sound like people trying to cash in or cash out on a prospect? Shouldn't they be trying to build him up properly? You know, I don't know, man. I'm not impressed by the way they're handling Parker's career at the moment, man. You know, it is what it is. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, because I've given you mine. All right, it's your boy Hatman, I'm out.